Hello everybody, this is the Arduino automatic distance alarm with Wi-Fi. So a little bit about why I decided to make this project. I'm a junior computer science student at Colorado State University, and I've always been really interested in computer science topics. I've always loved the gadgets that people like to make, and that's really what got us all into it in the first place. We saw these gadgets online and we really liked to do them, and sooner or later we all got caught up with just the coding and the projects, and I think that this project was really a good way to reconnect with what made us love computer science in the first place. Coming into it, I have a lot of experience with coding in Python, C++, Java, HTML, CSS, a lot of different languages, and a lot of this was able to translate over to a really good product. Now, I am very much a beginner in electrical engineering, and so this was the excellent project to teach me the basics of circuits and how to design them. And without further ado, let's get into the project. So let's talk about how exactly I designed the project. So I decided to start out with the hardware aspect, and I used a lot of the knowledge I learned in an electrical engineering class to design all of the circuits and get them all up and running. These were all connected to certain pins, which then I wrote into the code. So a lot of the code is essentially a gathering up. It's a collection of a lot of different modules that I pulled from different places. So there are a lot of examples that Colorado State has provided us. There are also a lot of other examples of small snippets of code that you can gather from the internet, other ones I've written as well. And I really aggregated all of these together into one comprehensive program based on a bunch of different modules that are edited for my specific use case. So one of the algorithms that I designed myself was the number of lights algorithm, which determines how many lights on the LED should be illuminated. I calculated this based on how many thresholds you are away from the threshold, and that would determine the number of lights in an inverse order. So if you totally meet the threshold, then all 10 lights will illuminate. And then if you are a certain number of thresholds away multiplied by a coefficient you specify, that is how many lights you will illuminate. It was a bit of a challenge to get working, but once I finally did, I was really satisfied with the final project. So you might have noticed that there's a Wi-Fi chip on the microcontroller, and this actually allows you to do a couple of cool things wirelessly. So if you connect through Wi-Fi to the access point that it creates, there are a few buttons that are now available to you. So this is what we are working with here. We have a microcontroller here on the left. This is what the code gets sent to. And as we can see, it is equipped with a Wi-Fi chip in there. We also have two LEDs. There is a blue and there is a red, and these alternate when the alarm is triggered. We also have a strip of LEDs, as we can see in here. And as you get closer and closer to the alarm, they ascend until the alarm finally goes off. Lastly, we have a display right here, and this displays how far away the closest object is from the sensor, and it starts at the top and updates all the way down. So as we can see, as our hand gets closer, the distance slowly decreases. And lastly, we have a buzzer here at the bottom, and so what this does is this emits a loud sound when the alarm is activated. So one of the ways that we can activate the distance sensor is by getting too close to it. According to this ultrasonic distance sensor here, it sends out ultrasonic waves and picks them back up and calculates the time it takes to do so, which then calculates the distance. So if we put our hand too close, then the alarm will go off. And as you can see, the buzzer emits a very loud sound, and there are alternating lights here, as well as the display will update in red the new distance. So as we can see, it got to 3 centimeters. There is one last way to activate the alarm. If we hit a tiny little button here, it does not matter what the distance is, it will activate. So one of the interesting quirks of this project is the fact that it's built on a breadboard, which means that it's a bit physically fragile. And so in a final product, everything would be soldered together, so it would be a lot more mechanically sturdy. And then in terms of future plans for this project, I think that a display with such detailed distance output plus a large array of LEDs was a bit superfluous. It was a bit too much, and I think that I could replace it with a very simple display indicator with only 4 pins instead, which would delete all of the need for the display and for those 10 LEDs, which would massively simplify the product. So that's how the device works. It was actually a pretty simple build. I expected there to be more challenges along the way, and there certainly were, but not nearly as many as I expected. One of the first was actually with the display. So there are a lot of pins in there, and what the display would do was it would start up and it would flash white, and then it would go back to what it was supposed to be doing, displaying distance, and then it would flash to white again, and it was this loop that I couldn't quite figure out. And for the longest time, I thought it was a hardware issue. But then I decided to delete a couple lines of code here and there. And what I found was that for some reason, it was an error with the software. So I got rid of a couple methods and rewrote them again. I have no idea why this issue was caused, but I just rewrote those couple methods, and that got the display up and working. The Wi-Fi aspect of this was also particularly new for me because I delved back into web design for a little bit. I essentially created a big long string which had all of the HTML code, which would then be sent to the Wi-Fi chip. And so I looked for a template and then I edited that accordingly. It is available online. And then in terms of future plans for this project, I actually plan to make the design more simple. I think that the display was certainly a very complex topic to get figured out. The display itself has a lot of pins, and so do those 10 LEDs. I think that the number of lights algorithm was certainly a good idea, but I think that it just creates too complex a system. And as we know in computer science, we want to make as effective a system as possible with as little complexity as possible. So I think I would put in a little numerical display that would completely make the display and those 10 LEDs obsolete. That's what I would do in the future. And blah, 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 blah.